The resource course. Amidst the kaleidoscope of global geopolitics and economic alliances, Africa's relationship with the BRICS nations, especially with the grand design of China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), stands as an intriguing case study in contrasts. On one hand, the initiative promises unprecedented levels of infrastructure investment, potentially reshaping the developmental narrative for a continent rife with challenges. On the other hand, this relationship bears the indelible marks of asymmetry and has been critically assessed as an extension of neo-colonial influence under the veneer of cooperative diplomacy. By 2023, China's projected investment within the BRI framework balloons to an astronomical $150 billion across 1,400 projects in 65 countries. Africa stands to be a principal beneficiary or possibly a principal debtor, given the $60 billion sunk into the continent as of 2018. Ostensibly, these are staggering sums directed toward catalyzing Africa's much-needed infrastructural and economic renaissance. Yet, the question that looms ominously is whether this engagement is less a partnership and more a lopsided arrangement, one that, for all its glittering promises, risks ensnaring Africa in a web of unsustainable debt, political subservience, and worst of all, an enduring resource curse. Although statistics chart a burgeoning economic relationship with projected total trade valued at $414 billion in 2022, the unspoken narrative is one of glaring trade deficits and imbalance. For instance, Africa's trade shortfall with China alone stands at an approximate $20 billion, a red flag signaling a larger systemic issue. Such numerical imbalances are not just ledger entries but markers of a deeply entrenched power asymmetry. They exemplify Africa's quandary, a paradoxical state where abundant natural resources become the fulcrum, not the collective elevation, but for exploitation and external control. The BRI's ambitious infrastructure projects spanning ports, roads, and railways do indeed offer a glimmer of transformative potential. However, these infrastructural labyrinths often function as conduits primarily for resource extraction, thereby perpetuating the same vicious cycle of economic inequality. As it currently stands, the developmental rhetoric might be rich, but the reality could be strikingly poor for Africa. Furthermore, this isn't merely a fiscal issue but a fundamental challenge to the ethical core of international partnerships. The resource course is the litmus test for the global community's commitment to equitable engagement, not just in terms of economics, but in the shaping of a more collaborative democratic world order. As Africa contemplates its strategic alignments with global titans like the BRICS, the stakes could not be higher. The continent must actively shape, not merely participate, in these grand global narratives and ensure that its engagement is predicated upon a vision of long-term, sustainable, and equitable growth. Anything short of this would merely perpetuate a legacy of exploitation artfully cloaked in the language of opportunity. Africa's vulnerability. Within the ever-evolving geopolitical landscape, Africa's engagement with the BRICS consortium, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, offers a panorama replete with both potential and pitfalls. At the heart of this intricate relationship lies a fundamental asymmetry, born not merely from economic imbalances, but from a divergence in strategic capabilities. While South Africa stands as Africa's flag bearer within BRICS, the nation is hardly a microcosm of the continent's myriad complexities, aspirations, and challenges. Representing a continent of 54 diverse nations through the lens of a single country, however sophisticated or advanced, poses a significant limitation in itself. The structural asymmetry becomes glaringly visible in sectors like technology and manufacturing, where BRICS nations wield considerable clout, far outpacing the majority of African states. Although the African Union's Agenda 2063 outlines an aspirational roadmap for an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens, this vision runs the risk of becoming an unfulfilled promise if the continent doesn't strategically negotiate its role within global partnerships like BRICS. The disparity is not merely about numbers, it is an inequality of bargaining power, one that could manifest in policy directives and trade agreements tailored primarily to serve the interests of more powerful member nations at the expense of Africa's broader developmental objectives. Herein lies the crux of Africa's vulnerability. Its underrepresentation in frameworks that have a significant bearing on its future. If unchecked, this imbalance could not only hamper the achievement of sustainable growth, but could exacerbate existing socio-economic disparities within the continent. BRICS, for all its anti-Western sentiment and purported focus on South-South cooperation, could inadvertently become an arena where Africa's goals are subordinated to the strategic imperatives of more dominant players. It is a subtext that threatens to reduce Africa's role to that of a passive beneficiary rather than an active stakeholder in crafting a new economic and geopolitical order. The challenge for Africa is not merely to carve out a seat at the table, but to redefine the rules of the game. Africa must push for a democratization of international economic relations to ensure that its engagement with global powers is rooted in principles of mutual respect, equitable growth, and shared prosperity. Agenda 2063 shouldn't just be a paper manifesto, but a negotiating tool that Africa employs to set the terms of its international partnerships.